Selections from The Lion Bridge, selected poems 1972 to 1995 by Michael Palmer. False portrait of D.B. as Niccolo Paganini. Those who have lived here since before time are gone, while the ones who must replace them have not yet arrived. The streets are wet with a recent rain, yet you continue to count first minutes and hours, then trees, rocks, windows, mailboxes, streetlights, and pictographs, refusing to rest even for the brief span it would take to dry off, change clothes, and reemerge grotesque yet oddly attractive, like Paganini, whose mother was visited by a seraph in Genoa not long before his birth, and who is thought now to have acquired much of his technical wizardry as a result of Marfan's syndrome, a quite common anomaly of the connective tissues, which may well account for the tall and angular body, muscular underdevelopment, as well as the hypermobile joints that eventuated on the stage in a peculiar stance, a spectacular bowing technique, and an awesome mastery of the fingerboard. He would bring his left hip forward to support his body's weight. His left shoulder, thrust forward also, would enable him to rest his left elbow on his chest, a buttress against the stress of forceful bowing, along with debilitating muscle fatigue. The looseness of the right wrist and shoulder gave pliancy, leading to broad acrobatic bowing. The spider fingers of his left hand permitted a range on the fingerboard which many attributed to black magic, for Paganini was said to have signed a pact with Lucifer to acquire virtuosity as a small child. After his death, perhaps due in part to this tale, in part also to rumors of gambling and wild debauchery, the church refused to allow him burial on hallowed ground. In consequence, his body was moved furtively from place to place, until after many years, and for reasons still mysterious, the church finally relented. A few paradoxes should be noted as an afterword. Though accused of charlatanism, he was rewarded for his skill like no one before him. He loved his violin above all, yet once he gambled it away at cards. He accepted wealth and renown from his worshipping admirers, but tripled the admission price to his concerts in the face of adverse reviews. While openly irreverent of tradition, he still took a princess as his lover and let nations strike medals in his name. Pre-Petrarchan sonnet after Peter Altenberg. Someone identical with Dante sits beside a stone. Enough is enough of. It's odd that your hand feels warm, snow carefully falling. It's odd that the page was torn just where the snow had begun. There was never very much. There is more, less, than there was. Today it is 84, 74, and 12, and light and dark. We are nowhere else. His smile fell to one side. Here and there, it was very light and dark. From Baudelaire series. 100 years ago, I made a book, and in that book, I left a spot, and on that spot, I placed a seam with the mechanism of the larynx around an inky center, leading backward forward into sun snow, then to frozen sun itself. Threads and nerves have brought us to a house, and clouds called crescent birds are a lifting song. No need to sail further, protesting here and there against some measures, across the years of codes and names, always immortal, as long as you remain a man, eating the parts of him indicated by the prophets. Stomach, skull, and gullet, bringing back the lost state. Yes, I just dreamed another dream, and nobody was in it. Words say, misspell and misspell your name. Words say, leave this life. From the singer, streams of color, but from you. A room within a smaller room, habits of opposite and alcove. Eros seated on the skull as on a throne. Words say, Timaeus, you are time. A page is edging along a string. Never sleep, never dream in this place. And altered words say, O is the color of this name, full of broken tones. Silences we mean to cross one day. Dear lexicon, I died in you as a dragonfly might, or a dragon in a bottle might. Dear Lexia, there is no mind. Dear book, you were never a book. Panther, you are nothing but a page torn from a book. Stupid lake, you were the ruin of a book. Dear Merline, dearest Lou, here the streets have their fullness and their flow like a blind man on a carousel. Once I was a nice boy, but now I sleep for hours at a time. Snow, you must be my pillow. Dear Merline, dearest Lou, I see a pheasant on the fence as I'm writing this, as I see burning Africa by chance in a cooling wind. Hateful city, in the dream, the tree was first a word, then became a column in a dark arcade. What signs for odd and even must be made? Dear George, so long, will you now have memory again? Who's one and who's nothing? In the game, she asked. I couldn't understand the rest. Ideas aren't worth anything. We mirrored each other for an afternoon. The sky is rich with waste. Waiting is the name of this tune. Electrons was a name for this tune. Ideas aren't worth anything. Today, space is splendid. The mountains have come loose. Let's unmake something. Ideas aren't worth anything. This is a hazardous bed called perilous night. Some blues, some indigos, some reds, and colors I forget. Ideas aren't worth anything. This is a trace to dry in tomorrow's sun. Ideas aren't worth anything. Sometimes my blood seems to come in jets. The persons in the poem say this between liquid spirits and scents. A broken jar says this. I'm writing your letters back to you, which is a sound at least, to mirror another sound, where no other paintings can be found. Imitate me, says the elm. Give me an azure sky, huge and round. Give me something in words for a change, something that fits on a page. The best paintings are on stone. Ideas aren't worth anything, said a person with two heads, one above and one below. Let's think about this. Let's consider the lace in the necklace, or the turquoise on a Turkish door, or the source of each color at a table by a wall. If we're really mirrors in a poem, what will we call this song? I want to continue on yellow paper, like a person in a room, and like a ladder and like a moth, say the persons of the poem. The tale is told out of school. Your eyes are tired, so keep them closed. Once an image, broken arm. A man undergoes pain sitting at a piano, knowing thousands will die while he is playing. He has two thoughts about this. If he should stop, they would be free of pain. If he could get the notes right, he would be free of pain. In the second case, the first thought would be erased, causing pain. In this instance of playing, he would say to himself, my eyes have grown hollow like yours. My head is enlarged, though empty of thought. Such thoughts destroy music, and this, at least, is good. You say a miracle from heaven. You say, I'm fine, I'm really going blind. Gay as a skylark today, you say. I haven't an ache or a pain in me, in my body inside. I'm fine, I'm really going blind. It's a joy to be alive. I had a visitor tonight with suit and beard and a Malacca cane, climbed through my window and entered me. Is this such a bad thing? Is this a thing at all? Each evening there's a poppy in my brain which closes before dawn. Whatever happened then will not happen again. Please move my arm. She says into the dark, almost a question. She says, don't see things, this bridge, don't listen. She says, turn away, don't turn and return, count no more lines into the poem. Or could you possibly not have known how song broke apart while all the rest watched? That was years ago. Don't say things. You can't say things. The ground is smooth and rough, dry and wet. Pull the blue coat tighter around you. There are 3 parts to you. I'm not the same anymore. I'm not here where I walk, followed by a messenger confused. He's forgotten his name. I'm not here as I walk, not anyone on this path, but a figure of walking, a figure projected exactly this far, followed by the messenger confused. He's forgotten his name. Don't say his name for him. Don't listen to things. You can't listen to things. Some stories unthread what there was. Don't look through an eye, thinking to be seen. Take nothing as yours. After Rilke, Orpheus, Eurydice, Hermes. Sun. A headless man walks, lives for 4 hours, devours himself. You bring death into your mouth. X we are called, sleep, festinate, Hull rocks. The eye follows itself across the screen. Words pass backward onto the tongue. Are swallows. In clay cliffs, the sea's no picture at all. Blue mountain incised with a face, ends in burnt cluster. Mud, private telematics, each person controlling a machine. This is owned by the man Roy works for in insurance work. Words will say this, resolved to write a play. Place an allogene within the graft. The hood is black with 2 holes for my mouths. I am not the prisoner of such a space. In a certain way, all this still exists, but the scene and the mirror no longer exists. Sky a painter's house. No, yes. You churn hymns into fragments. No, then yes. Asleep, you set fire to this house. Mr. Duck and Mr. Mouse mass as shadows. An indefinite calculus watches, writes, and rewrites. Animals are emperors, tamed and fabulous. The world is an object. The world is an object. Place yourself here as if on a surface. Replace horizon with an equal sign. B says it could be made of silk, of marble, of extract of clouds. B asks, is the discourse of objects specific? Can one imagine laws? Can you decode the birth of the sign? From the miniskirt, the unconscious, TV, the mirage, of the referent, the equation of A with A. A body disappears into itself, its mirror self, or sister self. The marks have no dimension. They stream from the creases of the hand. Let's call this the quiet city where screams are felt as waves. Plunging or released, a content and an alibi. A matrix at 0 stains you with ink. My speech explaining the layers went very well. B says, the blind are hideous, the city laughs, and you tread on corpses in your mask. Says that winter nights it's both sweet and sad to hear a bell. Say that these lines have neither eyes nor ears, and that once you woke entangled in her hair. Mr. Tulliver assaults his horse, wants his money. Chainsaw memories cause laughter among the hierophants. She spread her legs wide and braced them. We, the center, offer narratives. We have 3 days to live. In smog, crossing the plains of id, on the wall it was written, symbolism died for your sins. Own the body you desire. This I is the I who speaks. Signed, Scarandeli. Day 1 is called tongues. Day 2 might be this and only this. Day 3 is antimony. It was nice to come back here, lots of mountains, etc., living pillars of flesh. Day 1 is called trace. Day 2 is map. Day 3 is X, name of N. It is a spring day in the state of siege. I offer you a flat land, sun flares, then divides. From the Côte des Morts, she writes, the town has changed, and artists are objects, and objects have no skin. I could not have returned. To the left of the piano is theory. Call it alpha in Lyre. Call it Cetere or Last Nights. The blue guide, grid, the private experience of the blinking man. Call it Ones, split open. Call it a scratch band from Duluth, written entirely inside the body of another, its moments free of him, the pages turn themselves. Then I knead my breasts so that milk spurts out across his face and neck. Silver coin under the tongue, bread and money for the ferryman. This wire travels through her teeth as if through a slot. I ate all the food in the world and left people hungry. All these stories are the same. There is only one story, but not really, so I swallowed the corn and all was well. For 300 years they let me eat undisturbed. Now there is a present of watery light cast onto you, the body bent back in an attitude of reception. A statue controls our weather. Call it live at the It Club. Someone falling or depicted as falling, mirror folded about you and within you, unreadable, even invisible. The snow is ours, no part of this page coating Moscow's courtyards. Call it Hilbert's dream or papyrology, simulations, or the bathers. I nudged Dante off my desk into the flood. The others quickly followed. Streaming from that cafe, once known as The Rose, we spoke in the zero code, system of assemblage and separation. Arcuette, scar, shadow and necklace doubled by their reflections, then redoubled in the lens. 34,000 words spread out before me. Words like incarnadine, tide and cheer, asymptote, locus, tear, or tear. Waiting to say things. You cannot say things. And the anagram for names, for stone, for arm. Claustral body woven from signs. Call it table or call it trace. B says the real table does not exist. I sang my name and turned into a skeleton. In a tree, you below me. I'm writing this diary in the cold of our winter here, the city like a fortress. Taller has betrayed the revolution. The clock is set. Our pages burn themselves as theater, awaiting an extinguishing mist. I sang my name, but it sounded strange. I sang the trace then without a sound, then erased it. The body of a cellist is floating in the sea. Let us number all the sentences beginning with 1, then 1 plus 1. Here light offers its signal, its parts, words pop out of a rock. It is the last book, a point before the next. A body has seen, sighted, floating in the sea. At center stage, she bows. Then the dancers surround her. Malcolm sat beside me. He spoke quietly about music. This notebook contains shadows, nothing else. Dystopic, figures confound the matrix, bore holes in it through us. One speaks and the other doesn't. I say space to mean an ache or a page. Twinned logics of a face. The remains of a fly in a bottle seek our gaze. We have invented a mechanism for preserving the dead. Here only the head is shown, as encased within a block of glass. The head read us this. You have one eye too many. Masked as myself, you speak, suspend thought from its bolt. The head told them this. I want the stolen word here, statue fallen silently among the leaves, where we've come to sleep. A screen is ours. It's called Ways and Means. The name is The Old, Old Man, and its name is called Haddock's Eye. The head read us this. I have water, I have bone, everything's a sign to a talking stone. A thread read us this. Here whispers collect dust, fields fold up then out. Enter through the curtain and swallow your words. A screen is ours, infinite, hyaline. A woman bent double in the street is screaming, money, money. The throat read us this. I was sitting in the dark ivy at the gate of the desiring machine. No windshield, no wheels. I was sitting in the forest, the great counterweight. I was truly lost. I was seated behind a screen. I was aware of things. Those things were me, amazing the forked branch. Spilling names I had been, not I, had been not lost. I had seen you once, and clearly once I had been remembered. Once only the boy. Shouts Micah and gleams, I am in a versionary state you are in. Me as history, I fix and crystal to it. Inside the inside once, Alp air down the lane. I traveled a little, was limbed, where some father says, your words are not connect. The path we take is 1 to 6, ending in a bubble. Does all music enter into these cities? Do stones explode at dusk in us? Did you paint on the walls of the deaf man's house? I traveled a little to the snowfields, then down. How to say I or we in rival voice. These new waves circused in a void, placed themselves before us, spoke their tactics and their practices, traced each friction and line, each seam of an increasingly minuscule night. A house you enter and remark, I no longer understand what such things are for. Name you this, a region, a language, a pot of stew, a magical chain, shreds, particles, and objects. Name you this, painter of only shadows, paramorph, figure walking in ice, erased figure falling, whose liquid we will drink as it coats our skins. Story of hands abandoning their figures, of an organ emerging from the throat, a man with dynamite strapped to his waist sings for the first time. Lens, question, in, and black, as when, story of golden doves with silver dots, a word beside itself. The building is not, a word is beside itself. A word twists backward, peeling its skin up over its face. A word looks behind itself. Here you are law, a boat in flames or a gaze. Does it say book anywhere on this book? Does it say Jonah in this book? Does it say screen or stain and compose a tone of light directly behind the eye? Suppose there's a portrait on this paper I'm holding, day and night. The shattered statuary was heaping up before the newly named La Violaine or the Park. Call you this with a dot. Time of signal fires, no memory or map. The infraculet wakes at the sound of breaking glass. Throughout the city there is the sound of breaking glass. We have forgotten it, slipped between the pages, falls outside what is thought. After the angled dark, what is meant by book. Scribed on the streaming body, song to end a world. Through the glass box, words pass unrecognized, thinking us now dead to you, reader, now an ammonite curve, incomplete, now tablet of faint scratches, now redness in margins, now past and pastness, now a filament of light penetrates the image base where first glyphs are stored. Lucy and Ethel, the kingfish, beaver, and Pinky Lee are spoken, die and undie for you. Like a war viewed from poolside by philosophers and sheiks, senators and Diocletian's priests, the day has begun. The bed aches in its dream of durable densities, rain, a house whose balconies vibrate and hum in space. Do not write in this space, never sleep in this house. At the Sallywag, we spoke in growls, while at the Meise and Kaufleuten there were final afterwords, and many teeth fell out among the many mirrors and many lamps hurled to the ground. This is not the shining windows, nor a glance at the sea. Once your name was therefore, then rubble, then ash. Question of whose body in what photograph? I do not recognize this music. Moon drops from sky and burns in field. Man hangs from rope, woman points gun toward a world where I is a person formed of letters in salt. 5 figures in a room, or the triadic ballet. The clock is set for departure. Rowers curl through this air, bent against it, spewing sand, light lines, and ochre points. Songs in the future past will have been known as The Well, The Needle's Eye, and The Book of Machines. The branch bleeds so that a soul can speak. Twilight Disc, writ on you, Ilinx and Alea, desire in a net. A new year is being recorded here. Long saplings with paper blossoms, hollyhocks and painted sleds. Everything is number, a street and the figures on it, stolen genres and formats. In a bar in Bangkok, waiting for death above the flames. You are coated with 14 microns of gold, so whatever you say is true. Because the words disgusted me, why write? Signed Schelling, signed an arm or a door, signed the desert to the west. This is how one pictures the angel of history. Signed Series B, signed A or letter of A, signed Bakhtin's names. This isn't time, so I'll leave you now. Signed it, signed Mantis, signed a stone in the grass. I lost my brain when I put a fork through my hat, signed House of Music. This was the trouble with the sundial, or saint dial, signed writing itself. The lines through these words form other, still longer lines. Dust in a steady shower. It is our fortune to have been born at the crossroads of a chiasma in a land known as How to Laugh and How to Die. Did Spine write this story of my life in a pyramid, designing those pyramids yet to come, those galaxies now being formed, constellations, touching myself, rubbing against different objects in total darkness, a year of extreme pain? But fortunately, I am perfectly dead and can see into the past through a lens, signed the world as it is. Tango converted to a fugue, black milk, golden hair, cliffs, bridges, gray lake, and a grave in the air. It rains, it burns, carries something to somewhere, the something to something else. Hold your head in your right hand as a lantern, a light impossible for this season. And so we turn away from these sounds, raise our Illyrian hats, visit our beds, and ring a bell. X, name of X. We are. A bark sets out on the honeycomb's flow. We called it Le Départ. Sun. Write this. We have burned all their villages. Write this. We have burned all the villages and the people in them. Write this. We have adopted their customs and their manner of dress. Write this. A word may be shaped like a bed, a basket of tears, or an X. In the notebook, it says, it is the time of mutations, laughter at jokes, secrets beyond the boundaries of speech. I now turn to my use of suffixes and punctuation, closing Mr. Circle with a single stroke, tearing the canvas from its wall, joined to her, experiencing the same thoughts at the same moment, inscribing them on a loquat leaf. Write this. We have begun to have bodies, a now here and a now gone, a past long ago and one still to come. Let go of me, for I have died and in a novel and was a lyric poet, certainly, who attracted crowds to mountaintops. For a nickel, I will appear from this box. For $1, I will have text with you and answer 3 questions. First question. We entered the forest, followed its winding paths, and emerged blind. Second question. My townhouse of the Jugendstil lies by Darmstadt. Third question. He knows he will wake from this dream conducted in the mother tongue. Third question. He knows his breathing organs are manipulated by God so that he is compelled to scream. Third question. I will converse with no one on those days of the week which end in Y. Write this. There is pleasure and pain. There are marks and signs. A word may be shaped like a fig or a pig, an effigy or an egg, but there is only time for fasting and desire, device and design. There is only time to swerve without limbs, organs, or face into a scientific silence, pinhole of light. Say this. I was born on an island among the dead. I learned language on this island, but did not speak on this island. I am writing to you from this island. I am writing to the dancers from this island. The writers do not dance on this island. Say this. There is a sentence in my mouth. There is a chariot in my mouth. There is a ladder. There is a lamp whose light fills empty space and a space which swallows light. A word is beside itself. Here the poem is called What Speaking Means to Say, though I have no memory of my name. Here the poem is called The Theory of the Real. Its name is Let's Call This, and its name is called A Wooden Stick. It goes yes, yes, no, no. It goes 1 and 1. I have been writing a book, not in my native language, about violins and smoke, lines and dots, free to speak and become the things we speak, pages with which sit up, look around and row resolutely toward the setting sun. Pages torn from their spines and added to the pyre so that they will resemble thought. Pages which accept no ink. Pages we've never seen, first called Narrow Street, then Half a Fragment, Plain of Jars, or Plain of Reeds, taking each syllable into her mouth, shifting position, and passing it to him. Let me say this. Nyack Luong is a blur. It is Tuesday in the hardwood forest. I am a visitor here with a notebook. The notebook lists my new words and, flag above white, it claims to have no inside, only characters like A against herself, B, C, L, and N, Sam, Hans Magnus, T, Sphere, all speaking in the dark with their hands. G for Gramsci or Goebbels, blue hills, cities with hills, modern, and at the edge of time. F for alphabet, Z for A, and H in an arbor, shadow, silent wreckage, W or M among stars. What last? Lapwing, tesseract. X perhaps for X. The villages are known as these letters, humid, sunless. The writing occurs on their walls. From Letters to Zanzato. Letter 7. But the buried walls and our mouths of fragments know us but the snow staring at us. And you, Mr. Ground of what, Mr. Text, Mr. Is Was, can you calculate the ratio between wire and window, between tone and row, cupola and carnival, and can you reassemble light from the future past in its parabolic nest or recite an entire winter's words, its liberties and pseudo-elegies, the shell of a streetcar in mid-turn, or scattered fires in the great hall? I would say not, I here, I'd say book of knots. I'd say undertows and currents and waterspouts, streaks of phosphorus and riverine winds. Dear Z, I'd say it's time, it's nearly time, it's almost, it's just about, it's long past time now for the vex, for the vox, for the voices of shadows. Time for the prism letters, trinkets and shrouds, for a whirl in gauzy scarves around the wrecked piazza. Messieurs, dames, meine Herren und Damen, our word balloon, you will note, is slowly rising over the parched city. Its catacombs, hospitals, and experimental gardens, its toll gates, ghettos, and ring roads. Narcoleptics and therapists and stray cats. Ladies and gentlemen, our menu for this flight, due to temporary shortages, will be Alpha Omega soup, Bactrian hump, and nun's farts. As we enter the seventh sphere, you will discover a thin layer of ice just beginning to form on your limbs. Do not be alarmed. This is normal. You will experience difficulty breathing. This is normal. The breathing you experience is difficulty. This is normal. Dear Z, should I say space constructed of echoes, rifts, mirrors, a strange year for touring the interior? Should I say double dance, horn, axis, and wheel? Dear A, scuttled ships are clogging the harbors and their cargoes lie rotting on the piers. Prepare executions and transfusions. Put on your latest gear. Red, yellow, blue. Sarah's 8th. Now that you know all the words and I have almost forgotten them, or now that you have experienced rain for days on end and learned to paint with red, yellow, and blue, those days which seem to have no end, and I see you often walking along down the street or else among friends, mindful of company, equally wondering where from a world's wrongs stem. And now that you may swim out of sight if you choose, as choose you must, all along a song. Autobiography. All clocks are clouds. Parts are greater than the whole. A philosopher is starving in a rooming house while it rains outside. He regards the self as just another sign. Winter roses are invisible. Late ice sometimes sings. A and not A are the same. My dog does not know me. Violins, like dreams, are suspect. I come from Colophon, or perhaps some small island. The strait has frozen and people are walking, a few skating, across it. On the crescent beach, a drowned deer. A woman with one hand, her thighs around your neck. The world is all that is displaced. Apples in a stall of the street corner by the Bahnhof, pale yellow to blackish red. Memory does not speak. Shortness of breath, accompanied by tinnitus. The poets stutter and the philosophers. The self is assigned to others, a room from which at all times the moon remains visible. Leningrad Cafe, a man missing the left side of his face, disappearance of the sun from the sky above Odessa, true description of that sun. A philosopher lies in a doorway discussing the theory of colors with himself. The theory of self with himself, the concept of number, eternal return, the sidereal pulse, logic of types, Bourdieuian sentences, the lecton. Why now that smoke off the lake? Word and thing are the same. Many times white ravens have I seen. That all planes are infinite by extension. She asks, is there a map of these gates? She asks, is this the one called passages, or is it that one to the west? Thus released, the dark angels converse with the angels of light. They are not angels, something else. For Paul Borum. Autobiography 2, Hello Goodbye. The book of company which I put down and can't pick up, the Trans-Siberian disappearing, the blue train and the shadow train, her body with ridges like my skull. 2 children are running through the lion cemetery. 5 travelers are crossing the lion bridge. A philosopher in a doorway insists that there are no images. He whispers instead, possible worlds. The mind-body problem, the tale of the color harpsichord, skeleton of the world's oldest horse, the ring of O dwindles, sizzling round the hole until gone. False spring is laughing at the snow, and just beyond each window, immense pines weighted with snow. A philosopher spread-eagled in the snow holds out his third meditation like a necrotic star. He whispers, archery is everywhere in decline. Photography, the first perversion of our time, reach to the milky bottom of this pond. To know the feel of bone, a knuckle from your grandfather's thumb, the maternal clavicle, the familiar arch of a brother's brow. He was your twin, no doubt, forger of the unicursal maze. My dearest Tanya, when I get a good position in the courtyard, I study their faces through the haze. Dear Tanya, don't be annoyed, please, at these digressions. They are soldering the generals back onto their pedestals. For A.C.